eventually working towards Highway 29 between Bertram and Liberty Hill. Go ahead and put a track on that circulation if you don't mind, Caleb.
Sure.
I believe that's going to be moving close to 40.
Yeah, 40 is my guess, so we'll go ahead and take a northeast track on that particular circulation out to the northeast, giving it about a next 32-minute time frame.
So Oatmeal is a little community south of Bertram there. That's going to reach that closer to 10:13. Then Andice is over here in parts of western Williamson County, could reach you by 10:36. Eventually nearing Franklin, a little closer to 10:36. That's where you're seeing the Catholic Church there on the radar. Let's cut back up to Bell County real quick. I want to take a quick look at that, Caleb, as we're continuing to really see that wind increase there. That could be some high winds coming on the backside of that. West side of Temple, you need to be prepared for this. As this is coming through, we're probably at least going to see the potential for 50-mile-per-hour winds coming on the backside of this into the northwest side of Temple near Lake Belton High School. Again, no warning yet, but we're seeing winds on radar approaching 60 miles per hour. That is when we typically see a severe thunderstorm warning come out. So that is something we will be watching here. Let's take a wide view of Central Texas for those, and we're really just seeing that storm continue to increase in intensity. It really wouldn't surprise me if a warning comes out for that soon. But you can see these storms that continue to line up here from Corsicana down through Groesbeck, Marlin, Waco, Temple, Killeen, down into Burnett. And you also notice the blue counties there. That is something we will be watching through the afternoon. A new tornado watch that has been issued through 5 o'clock. And this includes not only a chunk of Central Texas, but the northern chunk of the Brazos Valley as well. So Waco, Temple, Killeen, Bryan, and College Station, all areas of population that we're concerned with, along with a good chunk of Central Texas, excluding Hill, Bosque, Hamilton, Mills, and San Saba County. It's east of there where we have that potential to still see some of these storms wrap up. There's a lot of shear in the atmosphere. None of these storms have tapped into that yet, at least officially, except for that one down in Burnett County. But it's not out of the question that some do, and that's why we're continuing to watch this closely. Anything new from the Weather Service?
They mentioned that the Bell County storm, it's the low-level inflow that appears weaker, but mid-level rotation, they say, has strengthened some. They continue to monitor it closely. Their prognosis of the rotation is just northeast of Temple at this time.
Okay, so good information there. The Weather Service saying that the good news, at least with that storm, is they are seeing rotation within the storm. There's no doubt about that when you see a hook like this. But the lowest level of that storm is not rotating according to what they're seeing on radar. And we kind of see that as well because we haven't seen the exact core of that rotation get tighter. But it is still, again, something to watch on the north side of Temple. Some quick winds could be coming around here on the back side of this, and that can produce those gusty winds. So yes, there's probably not rather a tornadic circulation in here, but there is enough of a circulation that you can see some gusty winds again on the north side of Temple. And we saw evidence of that on our Lake Belton Syntex roof systems camera. You can see the wind increasing there. Basically, it looks like the storm is latched onto that boundary. We're now getting a lot of moisture coming in, feeding this storm, which is why it's increasing a little bit in intensity. Again, not warned yet, but it is one that we will continue to watch as it works to the northeast. Regardless, it is putting out very frequent lightning there from Troy into the north side of Temple as it continues to do so, and flooding rainfall. That's why we have that flash flood warning in effect. Zach, can you see any of the comments on our Facebook feed at all?
In fact, he just sent me a link that we can actually look at those. So he says nothing yet, but we will be monitoring that if we do indeed get some questions or comments from our viewers.
Cool. Thank you for that. So we continue to track this. Again, no severe thunderstorm warning for Bell County, and it almost looks like that's getting a little distorted down there where it's not as sharp as we were seeing earlier, which is possible. It's possible that the wind came out of this storm, came out of the front of it and cut it off from that warm, moist air that was feeding it. Still, there's likely gusty winds on the north side of Temple. Not enough that we see a warning yet, but I know this is probably going to kind of perk your ears up if you hear that wind start going there. Not to be forgot about Killeen. You don't have a storm that's really organized right now, but a lot of lightning with that storm there over Killeen, moving back towards Harker Heights and to the south. This storm also showing signs that it has a little bit of mid-level organization in it, Caleb, but not the same intensity as, say, what we were seeing with that.
Yeah, anytime you want to see these storms translating into some sort of a sickle cell shape on the south end there, trying to bend itself into some sort of rotation, it's something that we're going to watch. Obviously, like you said, Josh, it's going to be on the lower end at this point. I mean, in fact, we're just extremely rudimentary characteristics from a wind standpoint here. So it might be attempting to, like you said, it's getting closer to the boundary there, which might give us something a little bit to work with. But as of right now, it's just a heavy rain and lightning producer.
So we have a Facebook report now of some tree limbs down in Morgan's Point Resort. And that doesn't surprise me because not only are you getting the gustier winds on the backside of this system now, but we also had gustier winds earlier when we first saw a severe thunderstorm warning for Bell County, as we had gusty winds come out of the storm that moved up from Williamson County. This one now pushing some gusty winds there on the north side of Temple. It really doesn't surprise me that we see that report of a little bit of damage. So we'll track the core of that on there where you could see some of that gusty winds. And again, the storm itself, the core of it's down here, but it's on the backside where we're seeing the wind. So as that moves northeast, Caleb has put the track on the area where we're seeing some of that higher wind. And again, not quite reaching 60 miles per hour officially yet, but we are seeing the evidence that you could see some 50 to 60 mile per hour winds on radar. And that would be moving towards Troy by 10:16, Bell Falls by 10:23, and potentially closer to Moorville there into parts of Falls County a little bit closer to 11 o'clock. Again, no severe thunderstorm warning in effect, but still a very gusty storm that's moving through Bell County at this time. Let's widen out the view a little bit, put a loop on it, get a general consensus of what's going on elsewhere across central Texas. And you can see some of those showers and thunderstorms south of Groesbeck over towards Marlin as well. All of this corridor of activity is built and it's trying to work to the northeast. The problem is that's the same way they're lined up, and that's why we're seeing this flooding threat starting to set up here across central Texas, is because we have multiple storms lined up like boxcars on a train that are moving in the same direction. That's why we'll see that flooding threat continue to work in. And what was that?
We got a report of possible street flooding by Waco High.
There you go. And that's what we're going to see out of this activity at the very least. As this rain continues to move over, we will see that potential for flooding continue to increase. But as that flooding threat comes up, thankfully the tornado threat tends to go down because you're getting cooler air that's coming out of the storm and cutting off those storms from the warmer air that's out in front of it, which is what that Temple storm was ingesting for a little while as it was going from Belton to Temple, and we were watching it very closely. You can see how it wrapped up there briefly, kind of got real hooky looking, and now it's not as hooky looking as it's trying to move a little bit further east. That's because it's getting a little bit more of that cooler air wrapping into it, I think, and that is keeping it from turning tornadic, which is good news. But still, that still can produce those gusty winds, and that's why we're watching it. Let's go back down to the Burnett storm real quick, Caleb.
Yeah, so this is still an active tornado warning that goes until, I believe, 10:30, and this is generally out of our over-the-air range. People down here are going to be watching the Austin feeds, but once this crosses Highway 29, that does kind of become our jurisdiction. So we'll be watching this closely because it doesn't have too far to go. The radar signature on it earlier was quite impressive. Looked to me like a very probable tornado at the time, and indeed, it may be still something there of that nature occurring. As I say that, we've got a new flash flood warning coming out for Navarro, Hill, Limestone, and McLennan counties. That's from the National Weather Service in Fort Worth. And that is to capture the additional rainfall moving up through those areas. So we'll get to that in a moment. But this particular circulation, which has been fairly steady for the past 15 or 20 minutes or so, still looks to be holding on. And again, we're going to watch this. It's not really in our viewing area yet, but if it maintains this sort of intensity, it will become an issue for our folks in western Williamson County, north of Liberty Hill, getting up into Andice. And boy, those locations sound familiar. So we will be keeping a very close eye on that particular situation.
Yeah, thank you for that, Caleb. Those storms continue to be a mess down there in Burnett County. One thing I did notice when you were showing the velocity is we started to see the hookness of it kind of pull away as we're getting more outflow of those storms. That's the same kind of thing that we saw happen with that storm in Bell County, it looked like. So hopefully that is a trend that is happening, and occasionally that can happen when these storms become more heavy rain producers. Again, that cool air can rush out in front of it and kind of cut it off from seeing that warm air, and when you do that, that very much lessens the tornado threat, even though we have a tornado watch across central Texas. So let's go back to Bell County real quick, and we want to go ahead and look at that. And since we do have some reports of some flooding in the Waco area, as well as those limbs down on Morgan's Point, guys, as long as we're in programming, let's go ahead. Down tree and sink one. Where's that at?
I believe they're, okay, so the Belton area. Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
So with that in mind, let's go ahead. Did they give you a time on that by chance?
So that is yeah, that's a
a
whole tree.
substantial tree.
That's down. Yeah.
3,000 people without power in Belton. Okay. Then yeah, let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and let's get on air during the next programming, not during commercial.
Okay.
No.
This will be 25 exclusively.
This will be 25.
Yeah. So obviously.
No, we're in commercial right now. Yes.
Out of commercial.
That'll be perfect. Let's start wide. We'll talk about the flash flood warning. I'll toss it to you to toss to some pictures. Well, let's wait till we can.
It's a national break. Okay, so we could technically go anytime.
Well, yeah, let's do it then. Bailey, I'm gonna toss to Caleb, who's gonna toss to the pictures and the reports. So we'll start with this flood warning, tornado warning, watch, pictures. Okay. I'm also feeding that to Caleb.
Yeah, that's also for my benefit.
Okay.
Our digital folks getting a behind-the-scenes view here. What's going on?
Now you know how hectic it can be behind the scenes sometimes. Okay, we're good. Yep. Can we change the super to flash flood warning by chance? Let's do that. Good morning, meteorologist Josh Johns, along with meteorologist Caleb Chevalier here in the Weather Center. We are interrupting your program because we are tracking showers of thunderstorms across central Texas, including a new flooding threat. You can see this flash flood warning behind me that does include Waco, Temple, Killeen, as well as parts of Falls County. That runs until 1 o'clock. The storms continue to move through that, and since they're lining up where we have one storm after another, that is leading to heavy rainfall, which has caused a little bit of flooding. We now have some flooding reports that have happened closer to the Waco High School. That's not the only warning we're tracking. We're also tracking a tornado warning now in effect for Burnett and Williamson County. Thankfully, this storm not looking as impressive as it did earlier, but you can still make out that hook. When you turn off the lightning, that storm very wound up as it's about to cross over 29. So although it's in Burnett County, which is just outside of our reach, it is coming into Williamson County. So those of you from Liberty Hill up to Florence need to be watching this storm very closely. Again, starting to wrap up a little bit more, but it was more intense back down to the southwest. No official reports of a tornado with this, but that storm could produce a tornado at any time as it does roll into parts of Williamson County. We'll go ahead and put a track on that real quick, Caleb, as it does move off to the northeast at, I believe, closer to 40 miles per hour. That would take it very close to Florence by around 10:47. So here's your 20 minutes heads up, Florence, as that storm is working your way, does have the potential to produce a tornado. Let's go back up into Bell County, Caleb, and put a loop on the storm, if you will. We were watching these storms, which were wound up briefly across areas near Temple and Belton. May start to wind up just a little bit more, but this is not tornadic at this time. What may be happening, though, is we could be seeing some very gusty winds on the side of that. So let's go to the wind mode of the radar real quick as we are looking in northern parts of Temple up to Troy. You can see some of these lighter blues. That is wind which is coming around the backside of the general circulation of the storm, which could be approaching 60 miles per hour. You saw Caleb query that real quick, showing close to 65 mile per hour winds. It's not tight enough that it would turn tornadic yet, but it is broad and it could be producing some gusty winds now on the north side of Temple. And speaking of which, Caleb, I understand we have some damage to report along with power outages?
We do. About 3,000 customers in Belton without power, and some of that may be due to downed trees. We have a picture from a viewer of a downed tree in Belton. That's not just a small tree, that is a large tree, and notice what it's leaning on. That's a power line that's down and took a few wires with it. So this lines up pretty well with a strong wind signature that we saw over the Belton area. We were picking out some 55 to 60 mile per hour winds indicated by radar in that same area. So that kind of damage could still be possible with this storm as it moves through northeast parts of Bell County. There is no warning for that right now. It's probably just underneath severe limits, maybe still some 55 mile per hour winds. It's something that we're going to watch, and also the addition of still an attempt of some rotation there near Temple. The storm has been trying to do that for a while, hasn't completely got it together, but the potential is still there. That's something we're going to watch really closely.
Thank you, Caleb. As we widen out the view, I want to show you that we do have more storms still moving across central Texas, more flash flood warnings. Also, we just got one, I believe, for Hill and Limestone as well as Navarro County, and we also have one in effect for parts of Burnett County. That corridor of rain all trying to move northeast, and it's all lining up to where this rain is moving across the same location. So this very well may be a busy afternoon. If you have lunch plans, you need to be very careful getting out on the roads. We also have a tornado watch that is in effect for the counties in the blue here. That goes through 5 o'clock. Does include Waco, Tippecanoe, Killeen, as well as Bryan College Station and a large chunk of central Texas and the Brazos Valley. So we will continue to watch this through the afternoon. We've got live coverage going on our digital platforms, KXXV.com and the 25 News KXXV Facebook page. Stay with 25 Weather. We're going to keep you advised. All right, so we're still on digital now. Okay, so you heard there we did cut in Josh Johns along with Caleb Chevalier here in the Weather Center. We're tracking the rain that continues to fall. We have any more reports from the Weather Service?
Let's see, the National Weather Service in Austin handling that Burnett County warning. EM there saying visibility is extremely low, unable to confirm if anything's actually active there in terms of a tornado. But emergency management is at least out there and trying to watch it. Other than that, Fort Worth, again, they were saying that, let's see, still letting the flash flood warnings go because this rain just keeps on coming. And they're also looking at some thunderstorm potential outside of our area. Throckmorton County, so that's going to be northwest of Dallas. Of course, Dallas, Fort Worth, the office serves a large portion of Texas, not just central Texas. So they've got a lot on their plate this morning, too, as some things are definitely going on around the region. Just for a quick second, let's go back and look at some of the flash flood warnings that we do have, because there are a couple of them. We do have one that's going to be right here in this stretch from just east of West Texas down into Waco, Bruceville, Eddy, Troy, back down to Temple. It's for this corridor of rain that's just been continuing to fall. And that goes until 1 o'clock. So this is not just a flood advisory, it's a flash flood warning. So flash flooding is imminent or probably already happening in some areas. We had reports of ponding water out by Waco High School. So there's that one. There's a new one that's been issued to the northeast of that. We don't want to forget you guys up here in Navarro County. Another flash flood warning till 1:15. For this one includes west, so it's that northern part of McLennan County, parts of Hill County, northern Limestone, and pretty much all of Navarro County through Corsicana, and that's going to run until 1:15. These areas also just continuously experiencing some heavy rain in addition to some lightning. So we, again, don't want to diminish a flash flood threat because flooding kills more than any severe hazard. And we're going to be making sure that we get that messaging out there this morning. But Josh, we do have, again, no active warnings at this time in terms of severe weather other than a tornado warning that's just outside of our on-air range. It's in Burnett County right now, moving to the northeast about 40 miles per hour.
Yeah, and thankfully that's the case, is that the one storm has been able to tap into all of the shear that is out there. And there's plenty out there. If these storms were not so numerous, we would probably have multiple tornado warnings in place. The atmosphere is just wound up that well. These storms popped up so close to each other, they were all fighting for the same energy, and so that has kept any individual storm, except for that one in Burnett County, from tapping into that full energy and its full potential. And instead, this has turned into a very heavy rain event. You can see that very heavy rain falling down in Killeen as well. Let's go ahead and take a peek at our Killeen Skycam if we can. And that Killeen Skycam, our Syntex Roof Systems camera, shows you the heavy rain that's falling. That is now, yeah, I see Belton, but we have Killeen in the monitor here. So we have the view from our Killeen Bureau, which is going to be very close to the Killeen Mall. That rain falling, the road very wet, and lightning very frequent. So again, please be careful. I know many of you will be close to having lunch here soon, probably trying to get out of the office and seeing that. Here's the view from our Syntex Roof Systems camera at the Killeen Regional Airport. This is just a little further to the south. You can see the dark clouds, not raining as hard there, but we're looking towards Harker Heights where the rain is, or at least the heavier rain is, just to the east of the Killeen Regional Airport. And you can see the dark clouds. Thankfully, nothing happening at the base of those clouds that really concerns me, although you can see little bit of lower hanging clouds right there. That's not doing much of anything, though. It's just a sign that we have a lot of moisture in the atmosphere and also some energy, which is good news, Caleb, that we aren't seeing it tap in to all of that energy that's out there.
Yeah, we definitely could be in a situation that already looks favorable. And thankfully, like you were saying, these storms are so clustered and they got clustered so quickly. It's difficult for any one of these to become the dominant storm. And all these other storms have winds outflow from all different directions interacting with each other. It can be difficult for these storms to ingest the warmer, moist air that they want to really strengthen. So, of course, that's lending itself to the flash flood threat because there are so many of these strong clusters out there. But at the same time, it is kind of diminishing our tornado threat. So you give some, you take some. And again, we're going to go back to this Bell County storm. The National Weather Service continues to say they're watching low-level rotation on it. So what we'll do is kind of get a quick glimpse of that. Thankfully, this almost, to me, looks completely outflow driven at this point. In other words, the winds doing all the work are all going in one direction. These would be the winds exiting the storms, and it's not really able to tap into winds coming in as inflow. You would see that in red, but there's very little red here to work with. Having said that, there are some strong winds noted nonetheless. I think base velocity does the best job of picking up the raw winds in terms of straight line. And this is a base velocity product, and we're not really seeing the brightest greens. It looks really bright green on storm relative, but sometimes that doesn't do the best job of just from a straight line wind scenario. So either way, some strong winds in this one, probably just sub-severe, which is why they're holding off on a severe thunderstorm warning for now. But there is some potential rotation here in this storm, especially in the mid-levels. I'm not going to let that one go. So we're going to continue to make sure that this one doesn't do anything sneaky as it moves across Bell County into Falls County at this time.
Which one of those is BV again, Caleb?
This is your base velocity product right here.
Okay, okay. See, I was thinking that was base velocity earlier that was showing the higher wind, and
Yeah,
that would have been more concerned. So good to know
right.
that that's SRV. And when we say base velocity and SRV, base is basically the regular wind in the storm that we see. SRV is going to be the wind relative to the motion of the storm. So this means the winds here probably aren't as strong as originally thought coming on the backside of that as it was during SRV. We use both in correlation as meteorologists to try to determine what the storm behavior actually is, because sometimes that base velocity can get real messed up if the storm's moving a certain direction and you can't see the winds flowing into it, which is vital to determining if this storm is turning tornadic. And thankfully, at this time, that rotation that we saw in there looks very broad. When I say broad, I mean it's wide. It's not tightening up and going towards the ground like, say, a funnel cloud would or something like that. So still a storm to monitor. It's not a weak storm by any means. It's a very powerful storm moving through. I imagine, I know we were checking the cloud heights earlier, Caleb, off screen, and those cloud heights were getting up closer to 56,000 feet. You get up above 45, 50, you're talking about a pretty decent storm that's moving through. So there, you see it right there. When we see these reds, that's closer to 50,000 feet, I believe.
Yeah.
The query tool may not like it that much, but it's close to 50,000 feet when you see those reds. So that's a very intense storm. But intense doesn't necessarily mean severe. It just means, hey, this thing's got a lot of energy. In this case, the storm is spinning that energy as rain, which can still form severe weather, being flash flooding. That's why we have the flash flood warnings in effect, because the rain rates with these storms are very intense that are working through. That thing is still acting a little wound up, though, Caleb. As you see, that hook still happening. Thankfully, again, though, as the National Weather Service, as Caleb and I have told you, this is in the mid-levels.
Right. I mean, that shape that you're seeing, that characteristic would let you know something almost certainly would be rotating, but that is mid-level rotation at this time. Once we get down to the lower levels, which would obviously be the most important part for a tornado, since the tornado is the connection of the cloud to the ground, it's looking definitely weaker on that standpoint. When we look at rotation, we're going to use that product that Josh was mentioning, SRV, storm relative velocity. When you look at that, there is no inflow here. It's all outflow driven at the moment. Still strong winds crossing I-35 for Troy and coming into the extreme western clip of Falls County here, but nothing that's actively spinning. And of course, the base velocity will actually tell us a little bit more about the straight line wind product. Those bright greens don't become so bright anymore. That's why this is not a severe thunderstorm at this time, but this is going to be your pocket of strongest winds. Like I said, crossing 35 north of Temple, and no active warnings with this storm yet, but we know that the National Weather Service is watching this right now as we are, and it's going to continue to move off to the north and northeast at about 40 miles per hour.
So let's back that up, check on our storm down in Williamson County again, because that's where we have that one tornado warning. that it looks like has been allowed to expire. That's
Correct.
good news. The storm's still a healthy storm. It's got all the lightning. It has this hook down here, so it is ingesting warm air. It may be ingesting cooler air than it was earlier because you're seeing a lot more rain forming ahead of it. That can interrupt the flow of warm air into this storm, which means it doesn't have as much to eat, doesn't have as much to build off of. So thankfully, that has happened, at least with this storm in Burnett County. So no tornado warnings no longer in effect. We still have that severe thunderstorm warning now for Burnett County through 10:45, and that's going to be for this corner of Burnett County that goes from Briggs down through Bertram and butts up next to Bell County. So it will serve watching if it works towards Bell County, but I imagine if this same storm works in that general direction, it'll encounter some of the cooler air that has been put out by these storms in Bell County, and that should help to lessen the severe threat. At least that's what I think would happen, what the hope is as well, as we don't want any more of these severe storms out there. But we continue to deal with very heavy rain still in place across Bell County, and there's that circulation, very broad now. Notice the greens, the reds, they aren't very close together. They were back here when it was back over towards 281. That's when it was tornadic, but now the winds have pushed out of that storm, cut it off from that main flow, and we just have a storm that's moving through that's strong, but and is severe, but is not tornadic because it can't access that warm air. Basically the same thing that happened to our storms up in Bell County, although they just never had the chance to go tornadic. So good news there is we are seeing that, and we'll go up to Bell and McLennan real quick, Caleb, and just check and make sure nothing funky's going on. Just a lot of rain right now.
A lot of rain. Let me turn off the lighting because I know this gets pretty cluttered. So we're starting to lose, I mean, there's a hook appendage with this storm near Troy, but it's starting to just envelop itself in all this rain. And again, that's going to be a product of the outflow winds. The winds exiting the storm are doing the work right now. So it's going to probably erase some of that hook appendage here over the next little bit. Of course, as this moves to the east and northeast, there's still probably going to be some attempts for that mid-level rotation to make it down farther, but so far it just hasn't had the best of luck doing that. And it's still advertising perhaps some strong winds. Latest from the National Weather Service on this storm says that they still call that rotation broad and weak near Troy, and they anticipate no changes at this time, which would mean no additional warnings for this. They're going to let this ride without a warning, either a severe thunderstorm warning or a tornado warning. It's subsevere right now, but still, like Josh said, a potent storm nonetheless. Lots of heavy rain, lots of lightning, and maybe a little bit of hail too. We haven't really checked the hail tracker in a bit. That's going to be some pea-sized hail at best near Troy, and just maybe some pockets as you work your way back into Killeen. We got a little hail core there near Killeen, so this is another strong, potentially strong storm. Let me just check that one real quick because this is a bit of a new development. So that would be, actually, you know what, we've got a tool that's better for that. Let's get you an actual size between Killeen and Nolanville of just some, this would be normal playing size marble size hail there. And I think the only other core of potential hail that we've got, Josh, would be the one that's actually warned back down here in Burnett County. It's warned for quarter size hail, and there might be some quarter size hail in it. We are picking up from an algorithm right now of about penny size hail, and that would be just to the northeast of Bertram right now. So from a hail standpoint, that's what we've got. Certainly the heavy rain is really the dominant mode of all of these storms right now, in addition to some strong winds.
Well, that's good news. We're just seeing a bit of a heavy rain mode take over. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not still dangerous. Again, the flash flood warnings, they continue. They continue till around 1 o'clock for many places. You can see down here on the board, Hill, Limestone, McLennan, Navarro until 1:15. So this is a situation where you don't want to get out in this if you don't have to. So if you can stay at home this afternoon, not the worst idea. If you can try to order in instead of going out and getting food, also not the worst idea if you are at work. And again, this may still be hanging around a little bit as we head towards that school pickup time. Storms may still be lingering. I think they'll try to jog a little bit to the east, but storms may be lingering just a bit. Again, tornado watch continues, though. I know, Caleb, we're getting close to midday,
Right.
and we have to get a show together to go on air. So you want to have any parting words here for everyone?
Well, I would just say, you know, we're obviously over on air on channel 25 and 15 at 11. We'll have frequent updates on the weather. We'll, of course, just override the newscast if we need to, but we'll take multiple points there in the newscast to check back in with the weather situation here. Otherwise, it would just be a newscast as normal. So that's at 11 o'clock over on the airwaves, and we'll get you all the latest there. But the good news is we do have no active severe warnings. We have flash flood warnings. We want you guys to take those seriously, of course. But we've got a tornado watch in place, no severe thunderstorm warnings right now. And if anything changes, of course, we'll let you know of that as we get into the 11 o'clock hour.
Awesome. And one thing to remember, if you are out there driving, again, you encounter flooded roads, turn around, don't drown. We'll keep tracking it for you here today. Stay with 25, and we're going to keep you advised.